culture in North America, but we can find it, but now it was spread all over the world. So when we talk about corn, we talk about three types of corn. We talk about grain or field corn. So there can be two types of the dent and the plain, and these are mostly used for animal feed, for corn oil, and for cornstarch production. Then we have the gold corn that we'll be seeing in the next slide. So, and then we have the sweet corn. So these sweet corn, they have less content in the starch. So this lesser content of starch is usually hydrolyzed to give glucose. So this one is higher in sugar, so it has higher content of sugar, or mainly glucose. So this is why the taste is very sweet. So this is the structure of the corn, so, or what we call the corn kernel. So what do we have? We have the endosperm, that is mainly, this is where mainly the starch is contained. So we have the starch granules. We also have the source of oil, the germ. This is where, when pressed, this is from where we get the oil. And then we have the membrane, or the seed coat, and the pericarp. And this is what we call the brain. And in the industry, every single component is used differently and is used for a specific purpose. So I like this question because the question reminds me of my undergrad, because I remember having a similar question, and the test asking explain why popcorn. Say for example, had another question I always ask, maybe we can go through next time, why the frozen bread burn when it's microwaved? Something like this, and you have to find a specific, really correct answer. So when we talk about corn, you have most of you made popcorn at home or etc. And you were probably wondering, how does this work, etc. So when we talk about popcorn, how it works, etc., we talk about the concept we call a concept of superheated water. You have seen this so many times in chemistry classes, etc. So what does this mean? That a water that heats at a temperature above 100 degrees Celsius and at pressure that are higher than 1 pressure atmosphere. And then this, what happens here, so you have higher temperature, and we have a pressure. And then there is a sudden drop of the pressure. So this is how, for example, we have water boiling. So it's making vapor or steam. And then there is changes in pressure or changes in drop in pressure. So this perturbation, like expanding the volume, etc., this is what we call the superheated water. So in popcorn, we have three factors that have or do not have the popcorn content. So we have the thick part, the outer membrane. We have the endosperm that is densely packed, so this like white, it's densely packed. There is no space between these endosperms, so there is no empty space. So it doesn't have the expansion or extension. And then we have water content. I said higher water content compared to other corn. You may have seen this, for example. You try to make popcorn, but it doesn't work. You know why? Because it's mainly because of water. If the water content is lower than 10%, the popcorn, you won't have popcorn. It doesn't. It starts burning, but it doesn't have this expansion of volume. So this is why sometimes when you do it at home and it's like, half of it is not. So it's mainly because of water content. The opposite, if we have higher water content, let's say higher than 20% or 25, so here you have these, they will be sticky, they won't be crunchy because of the water content. So it has to be within this range. So in books you will find 13 to 14.5. So this is the ideal percentage of water content. So what happens? So we have this. There is a heating of coal. So what happens? The pericarp, or like this outer membrane, makes a pressure on the inside content. So it acts like a pressure vessel. And because there is no space inside, in the undersperm, the pressure increases. Then, what happens? The water starts heating. These 15%, 14 to 15%. They start heating, so you have steam, you have vapor of water. And then it's like from one pressure from the heating, another expansion, but the expansion doesn't have space. And this is, so as I said, so water is converted to steam, and it extends. It's like a vapor, it extends. And then the starch gradually extends with the steam, obviously, because here there is no space. They need to expand. There is no space within the structure. So, and eventually there is a rupture of this membrane for the pericarp. So this way, like the pressure from outside, it's making more pressure, and because of the heating, there is like an extend. So there is like one way pressure, another way, and this is what makes it. Now you have a scientific meaning of making a popcorn. Why it's interesting to use to move from cornstarch? Because it's used, so first it's like one of the easy to use, one of the easy to extract. It's cheaper compared to other starch plants. And it's used in the industry as a gelling agent, as to make, for example, pudding, as a thickening agent, like to make sauces. Like this is a sauce that we buy. So we usually have and for bakery, and then for the other applications that we, if we have time, we can go to later. So this is the structure. We'll go through the structure later. So popcorn. I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening. No, I should go back. Start. Corn. So we have the amylopectin. So these are multi-chains or larger chains of glucose units. And then together they form a specific structure. We'll see in one of the slides. And this is what makes them useful or easy to handle or can be used in food industry. And this is what their structure make them easier to make this. You remember this grade from the first lecture? So the structure makes it easier to make this grade and to make gel or to have two phases, amorphous and crystalline phases. So this is why these are important. So cornstarch as an ingredient can be used as thickening agent. So it increases the viscosity of the fluid. So here, for example, this is a picture of a butter chicken cooking sauce. And as you can see here, you have a list of ingredients and a circulated modified cornstarch. Do you have an idea about what is modified cornstarch? Just kind of, when you read this in your list of ingredients, what do you think of? Okay. I can tell you what I was thinking of before knowing this. Before, you may laugh at me, but hey, I was thinking that this modified starch was a genetically modified starch. That's what I was thinking before reading about starch. I don't know if someone was like me, or I was the only one having this dummy thinking. So yeah, I was thinking that this was genetically modified starch, which is not. Obviously, it's something else. So when next time you read modified starch, It's not really genetically modified. Can be chemically or physically modified to be easily used in the industry. Okay, then we have the food ingredient, like use it as a gelling agent. For example, for making pudding. So this is the picture, and you can see here modified starch, you have cocoa, you have sodium phosphate. Sodium phosphate, we'll see it can be used as an emulsifier or interfering agent. We have, like tetrasodium phosphate. It's kind of an intercalum. It helps putting these structures together. It's for taking. So this is, Okay, so the starch is made up of glucose-based polysaccharide, as I said. So the most common, only mainly 99.99% these are amylose and amylopectin. So what are the amylose? These are linear chains. So remember, so there are two. There is the amylose and amylopectin. The amylose is the linear chain of glucose that are connected or linked together. So these are very long chains, about 200 or even more bases. And then we have brain-shaped polysaccharide with two types of linkage. We have the 1,4 linkage between the glucose, and we have 1,6 linkage. So this is what makes the ramification. This is what makes the chain. So the chain is not linear, it is also ramified. So it's like one purpose, they cross each other. So because of the linkage, 1,6. So these are the two types of sugars or polysaccharides. Usually, when we we're like presenting, graphically presenting these amylopectin, we do them as a diagram. So like, or diagram. So it's like, you know how we make a phylogenetic trees? So this is how we draw them, and it's kind of like reinverting the chain that's here, and so it's like it goes into the opposite direction. So this is usually how we see them in few slides. Amylopectins and amylose, mostly the amylose, they have, so both of them, but mostly we will see when we talk about the bread stating, they have this structure, this has the helical structure. This helical structure is important when we're making, for example, food, bread, or whatever, because this is where we need to control. So this is one of the structures that we need to control toward the repopulation of gels, the gelatinization. This is where we play. So that we play with the chemistry or the structure. Why these are important? The polysaccharide. So when we talk about these amylopectins and amylose and like cornstarch in general, because they are used, they have two diverse, or they have to use it like in two different directions. First one, when they are solubilized and they make the gels, and the second one, when they are hydrolyzed and they have making, for example, sugars, reducing sugars, maltodextrin, monosaccharide, disaccharides, etc. And this is what they're used as, for example, sweetening agents and thickening agents. So this is what we will today will be talking about these structures in two different ways: when they are solubilized and then when they are hydrolyzed. Cornstarch, as I said, it has amylose and amylopectins. The amylopectins are mostly the highest in the content. So when you see the structure, you see more branched structure than linear ones. And then this water is presented. So usually it's around 70% of the content, the sugar content in the corn. However, there are a few exceptions where there is no amylose. In the cornstarch, in these granules, we'll see in a few slides, there are no structure, there are no amyloses, there are no linear structures. And the corn kernels usually they look like boxy or sticky. They have a sticky structure. We'll see why, because the amylose is the one mostly responsible for the crystalline structure, while the amylopectin are the one responsible for the amorphous structure. So if there is no amylose, meaning there are less crystallity, crystallization of the structure, and this is what we see mostly amorphous structures, and this is what we get these sticky structures. So we can talk about the talking, the giving to the example for sticky rice. So why we have the sticky rice, for example, compared to regular one. What's the difference? And the same applies for corn. So remember, this is the same slide we saw in the beginning of this course. So here we have the network. If you remember when we first saw this, I said the network can be polysaccharide, polypeptide, or other molecules. Here in the case, we have polysaccharide, amylose, amylopectin, and then within inserted, we have water. This is what makes the gel. Here we have the amylose and amylopectin, and this is what makes the gel. But be careful. This doesn't mean this one. So when you see this, doesn't mean the water goes here. We'll see. There is a restructuration or reorganization of this structure to make this gel. So we'll see. When you see this, it doesn't mean the water goes here. You have to be careful. Okay, what else? So here, just to recapitulate, so we are interested in food industry, in cornstarch because of the solubilization, abilities of forming gels, and before of the hydrolyzation ability to make different sugars, etc. So this is how a microscopic view of the cornstarch granule. So you see here you have like kind of circles. And I gave you extra slides where you see there is a microscopic structures, etc. You can, if for people who are interested. If we zoom in, when we look at these structures, within the granules, we have millions of starch molecules that are present. So many that we cannot see them with the entire eye. And then we zoom in. So we're going like zooming in again and again. So if we zoom in again, what do we see? We see this. So what are these? So these are alternate patterns between crystalline and amorphous region. If we zoom again, we go to the next slide. This is what we see. It's like a tree. It's like a phylogenetic tree. What is this? These are male amylopectin. So what we see here, these are mainly amylopectin. And within the amylopectin, we have linear, so the ramification is amylopectin. Within the amylopectin, we see linear, that we don't see here, structures of amylose. So here, if we zoom in on this, within the amylopectin, we have the amorphous and we have the crystalline structure. So this is the amorphous region. Why do we call it amorphous region? Because there is a space between the molecules. So here we have this ramification and this ramification, and between them we have space. And this is why we call it amorphous region. While the crystalline region, obviously we have less space, as you can see here, and then we have higher level of crystallinity. So this crystallinity results with like intervening or like rounding or surrounding the linear component of the amylopectin. And then this is what makes the double helix within the structure. So we have a helical structure between them. So this is what, like the double helix are mainly made from the crystalline region. And we need to see amylose within this. Here, so you remember as I said, I don't have the previous slide. I don't have it. So, hey, here, do tell the difference, I know I circulated them in your slide. So here, you see there are amylopectin, like something like a tree, and inserted between them, we have amylose structures. So you see, for example, here, this is one linear. This is one linear, and this is one linear. There is no ramification. Like, yes, it's not a straight line, but there is no ramification. So these are the amylopectin. So usually they're embedded inside the amylopectin. Amylose are embedded. So what happens when we are making, if you want to make a gel, so or thicken a structure. To make this, so if, for example, we have cornstarch, so we put it in a container, we add water and we let it sit. We don't really have, you might have seen this. People who are cooking, you might have, when you make your sauces, etc., you might have seen it. So it's like you let it sit there, but it doesn't really. You have to heat it, and you keep heating and you keep stirring so that you have this thick sauce. So in order to thicken this, you need to heat. So start this kind of a recipe. So start with a cold water slurry. So slurry is like a mixture between water and cornstarch. Then heat. So as the temperature increases, water penetrates. We'll see. This is kind of like a theory text, and the next slide will have the figures. So as the water increases, we have, as the temperature increases, we have the water that goes inside in the crystalline region, and then we have a specific gelatinization temperature granule. It begins to swell or to like it's embedded of water. So it starts getting the water, it starts expanding. And then expanding, this will lead to lose the crystallinity. You just imagine, so if you have, for example, rice, it's crystal, like crystalline structure. And then you put it in water, yes, it starts changing, but it doesn't become, it doesn't expand in volume. It doesn't become like, how to say, very like a gel or easy to squeeze if it is not heated. So this is what happens. Then, let's see it. Because of this, the amylose, because they're embedded inside, so these are the ones can be removed, or they can reach, so they can be disconnected or disassociated from the structure, and but this association will help increases the viscosity. So this is due to the swelling of the granule, and then the formation of this gel structure because of the amylopectin. So then the solution is cooled down, and the cooling had in increasing again the viscosity or forming the gel. This is what happens. So this is trying for recapitulation. So we have a cold water slurry, and slurry. This is a real experiment. So then there is a heating process, there is a gelatinization. You may have seen this at home. So gelatinization, the water enters the starch. The gelatinization, just remember that the water needs to enter the starch, otherwise there is no gelatinization. Then, so the gelatinization is the opposite of crystallization. So crystallization is reduced, and this is where the starch starts to become translucent. You see here, this is a picture. I can just cut I crop the surrounding. I just let this is like a pan where it was prepared, and then this is how the starch is thickening out, and you can see. The thickening also is proportional. Okay. The starch, etc. So every type has its own temperature optimization. So we cannot, for example, if we have to do it, if you are working in an industry and you need to work to change the form thickening agent, like you will have to go over a huge, like more complicated optimization process to do it. So when we talk about starch optimization, I'm kind of repeating this again just to sort of make sure that you guys have the information. So like I gave you the expansion in text, and here I'm just giving you so that you can visualize this. So what happens? So when we talk about generalization, this is so it's the endothermic process that corresponds to the loss of crystallization. So this is in the starch chemical. So what happens? You see, this is the structure of a granule. Just imagine this is a granule. And then we have amylopectins. So we have the crystalline and the amorphous. Like crystalline, I draw them smaller, and then the amorphous are larger, so that you can kind of visualize. And the amylose are linear inline, so they're embedded inside. And we have water. The water doesn't penetrate like this. We need to heat it. Once heated, then the water isn't embedded inside. It's a kind of absorbed inside. It penetrates and enters inside. When it enters, so here it's like it gets like everywhere. It goes between the structure, but that doesn't get between the amylose and the amylopectin. So it gets between mainly the amylopectin structure, and this is what we call swollen granule. So the granule expands in volume. And where are the amylose? They are lesions. So they go outside the granule mostly. And this is what we have the gelatin state or starch. So this one. So here we're talking about one granule. So let's zoom out and see what happens in the container or in the pot or container where you are preparing, for example, taking your gelatinizing your starch. So what happens? This one, I just copy pasted to make this the bigger one. So we just put them in color so that it's like kind of easy and colorful. So we have swollen granules. We have the amylopectin that leaches. And what happens after? Then, here, we have the gel formation. So these amylopectin that were released outside, they kind of start forming the junction zone. So between them, they connect the granules between them. So this is what, see the dimension is not exactly the same. I should have drawn more amylose. And this is what makes the gel. And this is what makes the gel or the structure to become thick. So this is the leash, and then forming these bridges. Okay? Is that clear? Then, if we keep going, okay, here, I forgot to cut. Here the gel is non-stable. It's easy to perturbate this gel. Like it's easy to kind of take it back and and collapse this gel structure. So either by changing the temperature, stirring, adding different reagents, etc. And then, if too much crystallization and if we change the temperature, etc., there is what we call collapsing of the gel, or what we call the retrogradation. So this is what happens. So for example, in the bread, etc., this is what we call retrogradation. Here, we'll see it in two slides. The granules are this way. I should have drawn them smaller because, so you make your gel, you let it sit, you change the temperature, etc. The water that was example, the one in the middle. So this is what we call the retrogradation. So retrogradation, by definition, is a thermoreversive process. So you have your gel, you change the temperature, so usually like so you drop the temperature or you really increase it, so it's mostly dropping the temperature. You have retrogradation, so you no longer have this gel. If you want to go back, you just change the temperature. It's like these are reversible processes. What do we mean by starch retrogradation? It's realignment of amylose changes and aggregation of amylopectin into the crystalline form. So this was the definition. This is the same structure. So this is a swollen one. And if you see, so there is a release. So this is a kind of excessive crystallization. There is a release. So the amylose change, they kind of go outside and they start pressing. And then there is a leach with the release of water from outside. The granules collapse, so they change the sign, and then they decrease or decrease inside. And then the squeezing, because of this pressure, the squeezing of water outside, this is what we call the syneresis. And this is what we see in the bread. So we have a fresh bread, freshly baked bread. It is here. And then the bread changes the volume. It kind of collapses after 1 or 2 days. And sometimes when we heat it, especially, for example, let's say we put it in a microwave, or microwave is kind of different. So it's a different system because the water, like the way how water is heated, is different. When I, for example, put it in the oven, we have this kind of like almost fresh structure. So we're going back. It's a reversible process. So this is what we call staling of the bread. So as I said, this is reversible. Retrogradation. So this is what happens in the bread, as I said. So amylose in wheat, because the bread is made of wheat flour, etc. And then it has starch, obviously. So the amylose in the wheat starch granules undergo retrogradation rapidly after wheat. So the amylose are the one like going through restriction outside the granule. Amylopectin is the one retrograding more slowly. So usually you have this linearity of amylose because their chains are like they are linear chains, so they're easier to align compared to ramification or ramified chains. And then it's what we call their state. How do we counter this or avoid this? When we bake a bread at home, it's kind of we cannot really avoid it. For like industrial bakeries, there are different ways. For like even in regular bakeries, they have different ways. So usually they add emulsifiers. If you remember, emulsifiers is a compound of polar and non-polar groups that they have. Remember, we said emulsifier, they maintain the emulsion, water in oil, oil in water, so they avoid the mixture. So emulsifying here is kind of different, so it doesn't have anything to do with water and oil, but we will see why. So this emulsifier insert themselves into the halo structure of the amylose. You remember, in the beginning I said this helical structure or heli structure of amylose mainly is the one that we need to control to avoid specific retrogradation of gels, staling of bread, etc. So these I said in the previous. So here, usually this insertion prevents the crystalline double helix structure from forming. In bread, what we usually use, a sodium stearoyl have charges, positives and negatives, etc. This is inserted in the function. It is an emulsifier. But what does this do? It is an interfering agent. Remember last week, interfering agent? It interferes between the formation of crystalline, etc. This is the same principle. It interferes in like retrogradation of the bread. So another example, when we talk about sticky rice, so we have regular, non-sticky one, and we have one. So what's the difference? Amylopectin. So in one there is no amylopectin. There is no amylose. It only contains the amylopectin. Remember? So remember, the amylose is the one that is mainly responsible for the first amylization. The amylopectin, if you have higher content of amylopectin or only amylopectin, meaning that there is a easy jellification, and it becomes kind of more sticky or viscous, or higher viscosity, let's put it this way. Here, when the rice is cooked, the starch granules in rice are gelatinized, and some amylopectin leach into the water. Not all of them, but some of them. Oh, sorry. Then, here it's different. So the granule gelatin and the amylopectin. See the difference between them? Here, because here we have amylose. So the amylose goes outside, and this is what helps it redeposits in the surface. And some then later it will retrograde in force for crystalline formation. So this is the difference. While the amylopectin deposits outside, and because these are amorphous structures, this is what makes the surface more sticky compared to the regular one. You remember I spoke about in the second or the third slide, I said modified starch. I told you what we were GMOs. So when we talk about modified starch, we talk about chemically modified, physically modified starch to have like restructuration of the starch in a different way. So usually why do we modify this starch? Because we need to overcome problems that are associated with, we'll see them, with the starch. So for example, starch sometimes do not form gels properly, or doesn't like make specific structure. So to overcome this, we need to modify the structure. So here these are examples. You don't have to remember. Actually, this is like from old paper. And so for example, so there are chemical modification. So we'll see in one or two slides. And there is a physical modification, heat treatment, radio treatment, and there is enzymatic. We'll see them modification. So for example, usually we have alpha amylase to help cutting these very large cornstarch molecules into lower molecules with lower molecular weight. Okay. So what are these problems? For example, we have swollen granules that are very fragile. So we add water and we have start heating and then start stirring. And this excessive stirring will lead to a rupture of the viscosity. So we no longer have this. So instead of having this viscosity or increase of viscosity, we don't have this. Because so the granules are very fragile. Starch granules are fragile. So what do we need? We need to add chemicals to help, because the purpose is to make the gel, to cross-link these granules together. So now if they are fragile, we need to add a chemical to help in cross-linking these molecular chains. So what we usually add, so we add phosphate ester. It helps bridging starch molecules together. So cross-linked starches, molecules, they have just increasing their stability. So this is first example. Another example. We have animal gel. First, we wanted to make a gel, but the stirring, excessive stirring didn't help us because the granules were fragile. Here, the interaction between starch molecules could lead to formation of the gel junction. So here, we don't need too much linking. We don't need to have gel formation. So what do? This is another chemical modification. We do what we call the hydroxybutylation of form. So we kind of modify the starch in a way that is hydroxylated, and this will avoid the formation. It's like kind of interfering, avoid the formation of unwanted gel. Then we have another. I think on your slide it was written problem 2 or problem 1 because this is like maybe copy pasting. Then problem number 3. Starch must be heated to form this jelly stuff. If you want to avoid the heating, let's say we're working on a specific product that doesn't need heating, because obviously when we are doing this, so we don't have starch only, we have other components in the food ingredients. So what we do here, we have pre-gelatinized starch that form at lower temperature. So starch is gelatinized and dried. So for example, I don't know, we have this gelatin, etc. So gelatin is different. But for example, so gelatin is mainly from animal origin, but now there are new types of gelatin or gelling agents that are mainly coming from starch, etc. So this is how we can do them. And then like they can be added as a sheet or something like this. So it's we gelatinize them, pre-gelatinize them, then we dry them rapidly so that they can have this specific structure. And if we want to make the gel again, you just add, for example, liquid, water or milk, and this will help making the gel again. So this is, for example, what is made for using instant pudding. Can also be used in baking as a baking ingredient, for example. And then here, one starch, I think I wanted this to be increased. I increased it, and I didn't notice that it covered the text on your slide. So when we talk about modified starch, a single starch can have multiple modifications. So we cannot say, oh, this starch can be added phosphoric ester, and then here we reheat this. No, we can have all these together. For example, a pre-gelatinizer starch that is cross-linked. So we have phosphoric ester and pre-gelatinizer, so we do this together. Why do we do this? Because this gives a food processor many options for starch selection. So you have instead of having different modified starch, we use it differently. You can have this like one in multiple functions to get one have multiple functions. And then this has, of course, an effect on stability of the quality attributes, on the stability of food. It may have an effect on the visual relation, etc. And so it really depends on the use of the modified starch in the industry. interested in starch because of the gelatin, because of solubility, solubilization, making the gel gelatinization, etc. And we're also because of the hydrolysis. Okay, this is a complex flowchart. I think I should have had a reference here. I think it's missing. Obviously, I didn't make it draft by myself. Okay, so when we talk about hydrolysis or hydrolyzing, so we talk about starting from a huge molecule of starch or in a starch slurry to obtain different ones. What do we mean here? So we have a starch slurry and then we add an enzyme that is called the alpha amylase. The alpha amylase, it hydrolyzes the alpha 1,4 linkages to produce the polysaccharide. So you just imagine that these structures, the linkages, it goes and it adds. Alpha amylase, we also have it, as humans we have it. So they can be present in the saliva, digestive tract, etc. This is where, for example, when we eat bread or whatever, we start hydrolyzing the starch from the beginning. Then, one thing that is interesting in the food industry, we have formation of maltodextrins. These maltodextrins, you will hear from about maltodextrin. They're like simply oligosaccharides. Instead of having these huge molecules, you have smaller molecules. And then these maltodextrin can have 20, 40, 60 units of glucose. Then we move, like this is what happens when we do the hydrolysis. So we move, so we subject some samples to alpha amylase. Alpha amylase usually is active at 37 degrees, same as for most of most. And then we have what we call saccharification. So we get maltodextrin, and we keep moving. Then we have alpha amylase, but we also add the beta amylase. So beta amylase, it has cutting another or hydrolyzing 1,6. So like cutting these ramification structures. Then we keep going and we have purification. So maltodextrin, so you just imagine. Then we have maltose syrups, glucose syrup, and then here they have different molecular weight. And then we keep going. So here, you remember isomerization? Yeah. Isomerization because we added the isomerase, and then because here we have lower molecular weight of polysaccharide, and this one has converting to glucose into fructose. And then we have here the fructose syrup. These ones, they can be done within the same flow chart. It depends on what the industrial need. Or as, for example, as the one you are producing. So for example, you are producing cornstarch, or you are producing sugars or syrups for industry, so you are the one controlling this. You can go through all the process, or you can stick to the alpha amylase and then just make maltodextrin. So it really depends on what do you want for this. Why I cannot see anything in my screen? Oh, okay, so this is how the hydrolysis. Hydrolysis is mainly made by enzymes, alpha amylase, beta amylase, mainly. They hydrolyze. Please remember the linkage in the starches in general. These amylose and amylopectins, there are 1,4 linkages, 1,6 and 1,2. So obviously we have these enzymes to cut these multi-struct or polysaccharide. Say, for example, for the lactose, we need the beta-galactosidase to have the lactose. For inverting sugar, we need the invertase. These are the only enzymes we spoke about in this class. Of course, there are so many. These maltodextrins, the one with 40 glucose or something, these maltodextrins are known or characterized by what we call dextrose equivalent. Remember, you know what is dextrose? So, yeah, so if you go back to your, no, I'm not surprised, that's okay, if you don't remember. Oh, yeah, I thought you raised your hand.
It's a simple sugar, no?
Yeah, so it's a glucose, it's a sugar. So if you remember last week I said, it's kind of, we can switch the terms of the wording. We can say dextrose, or we can say glucose. It's like single, it's monosugar or monosaccharide. The dextrose equivalent of a starch hydrolysate is its reducing power as a percentage of the reducing, this is a definition I'm reading, of the reducing power of pure dextrose at the same weight. Oh, yeah, it was written here. I'm sorry. It was written. Okay. Okay, what else? We'll see what is this, because like this is kind of a definition, but we'll see what does this mean. Remember this? Reducing sugar? Okay. Starch is a reducing sugar. You know why? Because it has reducing ends at some point. Yeah, at some point, like these are huge molecules, at some point they have an end that is a reducing sugar. So this is why it's a reducing sugar. Starch has a reducing end. This is why we call it a reducing sugar. So what do we mean by dextrose equivalent? This dextrose equivalent is something that is interesting in like food chemistry or food industry. Something like this is what people try to control. For example, if they have to choose a specific sugar or specific maltodextrin, they have like a big chart, and for example, they need a sugar that can have, with increasing the viscosity, it has a sweetening level, higher sweetening level, etc. And this is what they play with the dextrose equivalent, etc. So, by definition, is reducing power of starch hydrolysate divided by pure dextrose of equal weight. So here we have a starch. You just imagine, this is starch hydrolysate. It's kind of like, let's say, a maltodextrin, although a maltodextrin has about 20 or something, even more. So this is starch hydrolysate. If you count, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 together. Molecule. It has 8, it's like a polysaccharide of 8 units. If we hydrolysate this, or if we count the equivalent dextrose, how many separated molecules? How do we have? We have 8. So one of these separated one. The same, I just kind of separated the two. So this is equal weight of dextrose. They have the same molecular weight, or same number of molecules, but the sweetening is different, reducing is different, etc. And then if we have to calculate DE, and the dextrose equivalent, so we have 1 unit of this dextrose that is divided by the total of the starch hydrolysate. And here it is 8. So if we have 20, we'll divide by 20. If it was a disaccharide, let's say maltose, if it was a disaccharide, so what do? We just like divide 1 by 2. So here we divide 1 by 8. And we get dextrose, a percentage of 12%. of 2.85. So this is what, for example, in this specific example, we have a DE of 12.5. So if we think about this, which one has higher reducing power? Which one can reduce the compound more than the other? Is the first one or is the second one? Is the starch hydrolysate? Why I'm calling it starch hydrolysate? It's coming from the big structure of starch and it went to alpha amylase, beta amylase, or is it equal weight? So what do you think? Who thinks that it's the starch hydrolysate? Who? You think? Did I give you the... No, I didn't. So who thinks that it's an equal weight? Okay. Don't be shy. Go. Yeah. So what? No, this one is here. So do you know why? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes, because here you have one reducing end. For hydrolysate, you have one reducing end. At the end, there is one. So if they are like, they calculate tartar, etc. So you have, yes, you have a precipitate, but the level of precipitate is lower compared to if you have this one. So here, like if you have 1 power, here you have, I don't know how to say, 8 power. So 8, like it's multiplied by 8. And this is how we enter. And then the great polarization, the great polarization, the unit, the dextrose unit or the glucose unit. And then there is an inverse because we just said there is an inverse association between the dextrose equivalent and the degree of polymerization. So here, for example, if we have H unit, we divide by 8. So it's 12 point. If we have 10 units, so it's 10%. So the DE. So we have the higher degree of polymerization. We have 10 units, but we have 10% of the dextrose equivalent. We have one. So let's say comparing. So we have 10 units and we have 100 units. So 1 divided by 10 is 10%, and 1 divided by 100 is 1%. So the dextrose equivalent is 1%, 1% compared to 10% for 10 and 100 units. So higher the degree of polymerization, lower is the dextrose equivalent. Okay. So as I said, these hydrolysates are used for different purposes. So we start hydrolyzing, and then it depends on the structure, and then or the way we have, or the percentage of these dextrose, we use them differently. So for example, when we have fructose syrup or glucose, so these are this is what we call sweetening agent or sweetening syrups. So the technology was developed in the 70s, very long time ago. And why they developed this? Because compared, for example, to sucrose, it was cheaper to make. For example, for industrials, it was cheaper to use this hydrolysate of starch as syrup for sweetening, for making, for example, drinks or even for bakeries, compared to sucrose, which was more expensive for us. We have dextrose glucose syrup. So these they come from this here. So the syrups are made like from the hydrolyzation. We have the So these can be used or sweetener. They can be either alone or in combination with the syrup or with the. And then we have maltodextrin. So maltodextrin, because they have different molecular weights, etc., they can be used as dipping agent, gelling, or bulking, and they can be used either alone in combination with artificial sweeteners. So how do we use this, or how do we interpret this? So this is from a very set, or the dextrose equivalent, etc. So we select our sugars or hydrolysates or syrups, etc. based on this. So this is a chart that helps, for example, if you're working in industry or bakery, etc., helps you identify your hydrolysate or your sugar to use, for example. So this is a chart. On the top, this is a dextrose equivalent, so it goes from 0 to 20. There are dextrose that are like, here I gave you 20, but they are higher than 20. They can be used in the industry. But this is, like, let's stick to this. So here, for example, if we look at the viscosity, viscosity goes higher. So starch, it has, it's dextrose equivalent to 0, so like because these are larger ones. And then you go to 5 units or 5 dextrose equivalent, 10, etc. And you can see the viscosity goes, it's inversely proportional to the dextrose equivalent. So for example, in the starch has highest viscosity because it's not, like it's a starch. And then the one that are hydrolyzed, they have lower viscosity compared to them. Then, Browning reaction. Browning reaction, Maillard reaction, for example, or even the caramelization. Caramelization is lower in starch or in product with dextrose equivalent that is 5 to 10 compared to 20. So dextrose equivalent of 20, for example, has we need, for example, if we need something that helps browning or coloring our food. So we need to go choose a product that has dextrose equivalent of 20, for example. Say for sweeteners, sweetening agents, and say for gelling. You see here? So this is how we choose. For example, let's say, okay, if my product has a dextrose equivalent of 5, can I use a pointer here? Oh, no. Font. Wow, it doesn't care enough. Oh, can I? This is good. Okay. If I am here, oh no, I cannot. So if I am here, my product has a dextrose equivalent of 5. What can I say about this one? What can I say? Can this be said for a product that needs high viscosity? Can I do this? I'm here. I'm here. So you work for the industry, and I can tell you, I have a maltodextrin or hydrolysate with a DE of 5. Can I use this? And I need to make or I need this to be caramelized, and I use it. Can I do DE for use DE05 for caramelization? Who says yes? Who says no? Don't be shy. It's fine. It's okay. We're here to learn. Yeah.
I feel like you could maybe use it, but it wouldn't work as well. I'm not sure if there's a positive relationship between DE and Brown reaction. So obviously, if you throw something like 20, you have a better Maillard reaction.
Yes. Yeah. Because you see the arrow of browning. Here it's too low, and here very high. So DE05 is not the best if I need a browning reaction. How about, can be used to increase the sweetening of my product? Yeah.
The same as the Browning reaction, it would really increase. As
Yeah. Yes. The jelly, yes. Jelly, I would say, it's kind of in the middle. It's very hard. It increases the viscosity. Do you understand this chart? So, for example, if I have to choose, okay, let me do another one. Let me check how many slides do I still have. Oh, fine. No, this I am not including, so this is why it's like I'm kind of taking my time. Oh, it's already 10:30, so okay. No, because this is important to understand. I prefer taking time so, okay, let's do another test and stop. And what did I? Okay, so if you have two products, DE of 10 and DE of 5, what can you say? You can write if you want. What can you say about this product? What can you say? Yeah. Yes. So the D5 is more gelling or gellifying one compared to D10. DE10. Sweetening, I don't know. Yes, we can. Like if we have to compare, we just say, oh, this one is lower. Browning 5 and 10. So usually, but people compare between like higher and the viscosity. But the gelling is something important. So 5 and 10. This is something important. Okay, what next? High fructose. Okay, so this was kind of anecdotic because when in the early 70s and 80s, or the middle 70s and 80s, when people started to talk about fructose and like, oh, it can be, it can promote like it's not too healthy. Or like, there were so many controversial because fructose is metabolized in the liver. It could promote the fatty acid synthesis and increase the fatty liver. It could increase the triglyceride in the serum, etc. And then people came for with high fructose sugar kind of alternative. So high fructose corn syrup, this is a hydrolyzed product. And then it's the equivalent in terms of sweetening, etc. It's the equivalent of sucrose after digestion, and even in terms of tasting. So because the high fructose sugar corn syrup was cheaper, it was compared to sucrose, so it was widely used. And then there are so many products that now, even nowadays, that are using a high fructose sugar, high fructose corn syrup. It's like it's an alternative of sucrose, cheaper, and then they were just saying, oh, it's in terms of how it can be like kind of an alternative. However, there were studies in the early 80s that were linking or associating the obesity with a high fructose corn syrup, because they saw that, for example, after industry started using these hydrolysates, there was an increase, like these were just association. There was an increase, so starting using this type of sugar syrups in the 70s, while the obesity started developing in the 80s. So, and then there were lots of controversy about this, and in the industry, it's like taking advantage of these controversial topics. So there was this was started to be developed in the 80s. It was called Pepsi Probac. Pepsi made with real sugar. So as I said, because of this negative publicity about high fructose corn syrup and this association with obesity, etc., and they were started to talk about sugar made with natural cane. So it's not natural cane sugar. However, we think about this. Metabolically talking, fructose and glucose are fructose and glucose regardless of their origin, either from the cane or from the syrup. So, yes, there were controversial about corn syrup, etc. But if you think about nutrition, they have the same. Like they contain glucose and they contain sucrose, and they're metabolized. They should be metabolized the same in our body, regardless of if they're coming from the can, etc. But these are industry. They take advantage of something and then they kind of try to turn it, and this is how it works. This is another example of dietary fiber that are made from starch. I think we can stop here, and we'll go next time. I try to take my time trying to explain these, etc. So let's take a break and we can start our so is it clear for you what is the dextrose equivalent and why we can use this, for example, in the industry, and how we can play around? Do you have any comments? No question. Comment. What do you think about this? What do you think about this one? I should have other boxes. So should we take a break and then we can start? So the text will cover until here. so it helps touching the amino protein from the structure. So they no, no. Yes, yeah. So, yeah, makes like one, another one. So I guess it's not so here, here, see, you have water, they should have gone this way, so that and whoever has D, it needs to be yes. Yeah, it's non-enzymatic. It's not the one that involves the sugar. That you need to use this specific sugar for browning. Because to have the challenge in higher heating amino you don't need them to be higher length. Need larger, longer molecules to make this big, rich. If you cut, for example, let's say you have this big amylose and amyloid, and you cut them in small molecules. So even if you make the gel, you want to try this structure that has this connection between amylose and amyloid, between the granules. See here or this? So you want to be able to see. Here. So these are very long molecules. These are very long molecules.
Yeah.
So if you cut that, there's even less than 10, but there'll be 2 proteins here. So this is why we need larger, higher, larger molecules that are not easily hydrolyzed, be able to produce higher molecules. And then, yes, yeah, see here, so for example, these ones they can increase the viscosity. You still have something kind of here within the gel. Within thick. So the junction will be formed, although they're not very well formed. So you can have a little bit an increase of viscosity, but you will never be able to form a gel with higher viscosity. If, for example, yes. For example, in here, you cannot form a gel. You are not able. You need at least 10 and higher to be able to form a gel. 10 or lower. Yeah, to be able to form the gel. Okay?
I think this is showing, this is like online, showing all of the values and where you break them up. So like the NTI and the law.
So this one, they're formed. These ones, these are amylose. So they can connect between them. Just make all the mixes. I should have to more so that she kind of feel real. Yeah. So this one. The amylose also collaboration. Yes. Yeah. out. Because the water will decide to push one out. Junction only. So imagine is so here, imagine you're here, right? This is one ground. But I'm zooming in and out. Cartoon. So see, they were relation. And you keep heating. And then they are forward. They went out. Because they're out, they start making the seed yeah, water style stuck inside. But then when you change the temperature, or for example, in the case of the bread, the temperature goes down, etc. So the water is like how it goes. Yeah. So it's here. So it goes inside the nozzle, but the nozzle infiltrates, it goes outside the nozzle. Yes. But then here, when it's still, there is no water to be okay? Yeah. Here, it's just like an example of an 8 unit starting at 8 units. 8 units. It's equivalent where it's equivalent in units, in separate units. Right? So if you want to have the dextrose equivalent, this is how we calculate it. Like dextrose equivalent, this is 8 units. It could be 100, it could be 20, it could be anything. For example. Right? And then it's like starch hydrolysate by the dextrose, it's like way by way, like unit by unit. So here you have 8 units and then they're attached to the polysaccharide. Here you have 8 units and then attached. 8 dextrose units. So if you want to put this one, you know what is their dextrose equivalent. So you should divide this, the total, by 1 by the total. Here in this case, we had 20, we could divide by 20. We had 100, we could divide by 20. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. If they were 20, you divide by 20. Yes, because this it's just this they are together, they are separate, right? It's like one thing. So if you want to know how many dextrose, it's like how many dextrose, how many dextrose, percentage of dextrose in the image. Yes, yeah. By the total of dextrose. So this would be called dextrose equivalent. So what's the percentage of dextrose or dextrose equivalent? So for example, here you have, so if you had 10 units, the dextrose, so let's say I tell you a polysaccharide of 20. What is the dextrose equivalent? So you know that dextrose is 1. So you divide 1 by 20. And you change the fiber, right?
Carolina.
How we do. So if you have 2 units, you divide 1 by 2. 50%. here, when we talk about the structure itself, like crystalline, more organized, amorphous. When you talk about crystalline, the gel and the starch, we talk about this one. Because this crystalline and amorphous region do not really have in making the gel. What makes the gel is amylose. It's not a gel. It's a higher viscosity. It's a sticky one, but you all know, for example, if you want to make a pudding with sticky rice, it's just like viscous, but you don't have like this stuff, like a very how to say, yeah. So you don't have it. Yeah. Yes. This is just a space. It's not when we're making the gel. It's the space of the amylose. When I'm referring to crystalline and amorphous region, I'm talking about the region. Crystalline and amorphous region within the amylose region. I'm not talking about the crystalline and amorphous region in the gel. So these are two things. Yes. Yeah. So here, this is a reducing. It has one and four solutions. One reaction, like one, for example, if you have coloring, so you have kind of what coloring you use. Here, you will have all these reactive. So you will have 8 coloring units. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yes. Yeah. No. You have 20 is like here. So 12.5 should be here. Here. Yes. It's the dextrose equivalent. So, after digestion, the taste and but the end point is the same. So whether you sweeten with the sucrose or whether you sweeten your product with syrup, sweetening, it doesn't change. Yeah, it's metabolic, but even the tasting, it doesn't change. No, so this is why they were like thinking of they were trying to make it cheaper because this one is cheaper than cheaper than, for example, sugar powder. Yes, the sucrose like coming from the corn syrup. So that because you know how they made it? Because they hydrolyzed it, the starch. So they didn't. Sucrose is where it's brown sugar is present in honey. Instead of having sweetening from palm sugar that is already expensive, so they took starch, they put it in slurry, syrup. And this syrup was cheaper. And it has same sweetening, same tasting as the one that has come from fructose, from sugar pasta. Yeah, so this is what they said, because it's usually what the 70s when they developed the technology of syrup and they started using it all everywhere. And then they started seeing, oh, but there is an increase of activity. Oh, that must be because, so what did we do? Oh, that must be, it's not an association. So this is what they associated beef syrup to the obesity that was developed. But not necessarily, because, you know, there are so many associations, there are no causal associations. So, yes, there are associations, but then it's not, you have to have a clinical trial or real trials to prove it. Yeah, yeah, go on. Yes. So, this 100, which dextrose equivalent it has, which percentage of one dextrose it has. So, for example, you have H unit. H unit, how many dextroses you have? What's the percentage of how many dextroses? So it's like you divide 1 by 8. So you have a dextrose equivalent. What is the equivalent in dextrose? In glucose in unit? What's the percentage? I know it's kind of a technique, but this is how we do it in industry. This is how people, like this common language, where everyone talks about dextrose equivalent. So how you calculate it? It's just 1 unit of dextrose that you divide by the total of your hydrolysis. So if you have 10, you divide 1 by 10. If you have 100, you divide 1 by 100. If you have 1,000, you divide 1 by 1,000. Yes, if you have a glucose, if you have a maltose, it's 50. If you have a galactose, it's 50. These are the saccharides. Yes, yeah. Yes. So in terms of reducing, if you have to make a reaction, you put this component in reaction with tartrate, you will have precipitation, you will have this, but the amount of precipitate will be much higher here compared to here, because all these, they have precipitation. Here you have only one, and that's precipitation. Yes, because this granule, see here I drew it, see here it's a circle. I drew it smaller, kind of collapsing, so it's not regular granule, it's collapsed granule. Because the water gets out like a balloon. Yes, so this is how.